Some of the quietest legends in the Pokemon world were never introduced with ceremony. They waited in sealed caves, abandoned towers, and places most travelers passed without question. Deep within Cerulean Cave, Mewtwo lingered in silence. Beneath the Whirl Islands, Lugia chose the ocean over the sky. Ho-Oh appeared only after fire and loss, while Rayquaza descended when balance itself began to fail. Dialga and Palkia shaped time and space from the heights of Mount Coronet, while Giratina remained just beyond reach, watching from a distorted reflection of reality. These Pokemon were never meant to explain themselves. They appeared briefly, left unanswered questions behind, and vanished again. And before you drift off, make sure to subscribe to never miss an upload, and tell me where you're watching from tonight. As we begin in the earliest versions of Pokemon Red and Green, Mewtwo was designed not as a villain, but as a being caught between two identities, neither fully Pokemon nor fully machine. The scientists who created it in the Cinnabar Island laboratory believed they were birthing the ultimate life form, a creature that could surpass the boundaries of natural evolution and rewrite the rules of existence itself. But the journals left behind in the burnt mansion tell a different story, one where ambition dissolved into confusion and power became indistinguishable from profound, isolating emptiness. Mewtwo's psychic abilities were so overwhelming that it could not connect with other beings without causing pain, its mind a storm too fierce for anything fragile to approach. The Pokédex entry in several games mentions that Mewtwo's DNA was enhanced to maximize its combat potential, but what it doesn't say is that this enhancement removed something essential. Early design documents reveal that Mewtwo was originally intended to have visible scars across its body, remnants of failed experiments and surgical adjustments that never fully healed. These scars were removed in the final design, but the emotional weight remained, encoded in its solitary nature and the way it watches the world from a distance, always separated by a barrier of its own strength. In Pokemon Yellow, Mewtwo appears in Cerulean Cave only after the player becomes champion, a narrative choice that implies it was waiting, testing whether humanity had grown wise enough to face what it had created. The cave itself, dark and labyrinthine, mirrors Mewtwo's internal state, a place where light struggles to reach, where every path feels uncertain, and where the only certainty is the weight of one's own presence. The encounter isn't triumphant, it's somber, a confrontation not with evil, but with consequence. Another quiet detail surfaces in the way Lugia was designed to embody restraint rather than dominance. Most legendary Pokemon are tied to creation myths, beings that shaped mountains or summoned oceans, but Lugia's myth is one of deliberate withdrawal, a god who chose silence over spectacle. The Pokédex describes it as living at the bottom of the sea, so deep that sunlight never reaches its resting place. And this isn't exile, it's self-imposed protection for a world too fragile to endure its presence. Lugia's wings are said to create storms with a single flap, not because it seeks destruction, but because its body generates energy at a scale the atmosphere cannot absorb. In early Johto legends, Lugia was described as the eye of a hurricane made flesh, a creature born from the collision of wind and water, and it descended into the ocean not to hide, but to prevent the storm from ever forming again. This makes Lugia one of the only legendary Pokemon whose strength is defined by what it chooses not to do, a meditation on the relationship between power and responsibility. The Whirl Islands, where Lugia eventually makes its home, in Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal, are not random. They were chosen because the underwater currents there form natural sound barriers, dampening the vibrations of Lugia's song, a melody so haunting that it can calm the fiercest seas or summon waves that swallow entire coastlines. The song itself is said to resonate at a frequency that only Pokemon can fully perceive, though trainers who've heard it describe feeling a deep, inexplicable sadness, as if the melody carries the weight of centuries spent in solitude. In Japanese folklore, creatures that retreat from the world often do so out of love, not fear, and Lugia mirrors this archetype perfectly. Its presence is a gift withheld, a kindness expressed through absence, and then every time it surfaces, it does so with the understanding that connection comes at a cost. The myths surrounding it never describe Lugia as lonely, but the subtext is unmistakable, a being who craves companionship but knows the world is safer without it. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at Ho-Oh's relationship with rebirth and the way its legend intertwines with the concept of forgiveness. Ho-Oh is often remembered for reviving the 3 Pokemon who perished in the Brass Tower fire, transforming Raikou, Entei, and Suicune into symbols of lightning, flame, and rain. But what many overlook is that Ho-Oh's act of resurrection wasn't just a display of divine power, it was an acknowledgement of failure, a god correcting a tragedy it couldn't prevent. The Brass Tower, later renamed the Burned Tower, stood as a monument to human devotion, a place where trainers and Pokemon gathered to honor the bond between species. When lightning struck and the tower collapsed in flames, Ho-Oh was absent, soaring somewhere above the clouds, unreachable. By the time it returned, 3 Pokemon had already died, their bodies buried beneath charred wood and stone. Ho-Oh's decision to bring them back wasn't triumph, it was atonement, a gesture that acknowledged its own distance from the world it was meant to protect. The revived trio, Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, are not the same Pokemon they once were. Pokédex entries describe them as wanderers, creatures who roam without ever settling, as if searching for something they can no longer name. Raikou races across the land with the speed of lightning, its roar echoing through valleys long after it's passed. Entei erupts from volcanoes, embodying fire's raw, untamable force, yet it never lingers, always moving toward the next horizon. Suicune purifies water wherever it walks, but its gaze remains distant, fixed on something beyond the present moment. Their constant movement suggests that resurrection comes with a cost, that being brought back doesn't erase the memory of what was lost. They carry the fire with them, not as trauma, but as purpose, a reminder that even divine intervention cannot undo suffering, only transform it into something new. Ho-Oh's rainbow feathers, said to bring eternal happiness to those who see them, are often interpreted as symbols of hope, but they also represent the complexity of joy, that happiness is not the absence of pain, but the decision to move forward despite it. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Rayquaza's role as the mediator between Groudon and Kyogre reveals another layer of mythological nuance. Unlike Ho-Oh, which intervenes out of regret, Rayquaza acts out of necessity, descending from the stratosphere only when the balance between land and sea threatens to collapse. Ancient Hoenn murals depict Rayquaza as a serpent wrapped around the planet, its body forming a barrier between the earth and sky. And this imagery suggests that Rayquaza doesn't just stop conflicts, it embodies the boundary itself, the thin line that keeps opposing forces from annihilating one another. Groudon and Kyogre's endless battle is often framed as a rivalry, but it's more accurately a conversation, 2 elemental beings debating the shape of the world through action rather than words. Groudon expands the land, believing that solid ground is the foundation of all life, while Kyogre floods the earth, arguing that water is the source from which everything flows. Neither is wrong, and neither can win, because victory would mean the end of balance, the collapse of the ecosystem into a single, unchanging state. Rayquaza's intervention is not violent. It doesn't destroy Gruden or Kyogre, doesn't imprison them or force submission. Instead, it simply appears, its presence a reminder that extremes must yield to something greater, that neither land nor sea can exist without the sky that holds them apart. The green light that radiates from Rayquaza's body during its descent is often described as otherworldly, a glow that doesn't belong to fire, water, or earth, but to the atmosphere itself, the invisible force that sustains all life. In Pokemon Emerald, Rayquaza's mega evolution is triggered not by a stone, but by the meteor shards it has consumed over millennia, fragments of space debris that contain trace amounts of cosmic energy. This detail suggests that Rayquaza is not purely of the Earth, but of the space surrounding it, a guardian whose power comes from the void between worlds. Its body absorbs radiation, converts starlight into strength, and holds the memory of countless collisions between celestial bodies, each one contributing to its ability to maintain the fragile equilibrium below. The Delta episode in Pokemon Omega, Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, expands on this, revealing that Rayquaza has been defending the planet from meteor strikes for eons, silently destroying threats before they can reach the surface. This recontextualizes its role. It's not just a mediator between Groudon and Kyogre, but a shield against extinction, a being whose entire existence is dedicated to preserving the world from forces it cannot see. The fact that humanity remains unaware of this service adds a layer of quiet tragedy. Rayquaza protects without recognition, without gratitude, because protection is simply what it does. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the creation trio of Sinnoh, Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina, and the way their relationship mirrors the structure of reality itself. Dialga is often described as the Pokemon that controls time, but a more accurate interpretation is that Dialga is time, its heartbeat, the rhythm that moves existence forward, its breath the force that prevents all moments from collapsing into a single, eternal present. Every second that passes does so because Dialga allows it, every memory preserved because its presence anchors events in sequence. Palkia, by contrast, governs space, not in the sense of empty voids, but in the sense of distance, dimension, and the relationship between objects. Without Palkia, nothing could be separate from anything else. All matter would occupy the same infinitesimal point, compressed into a singularity that negates meaning. Palkia's existence ensures that things can be apart, that perspective exists, that the concept of here and there has substance. Its roar is said to warp reality, bending the fabric of space until locations that were once distant become adjacent, a power that suggests space is not fixed, but fluid, constantly shaped by the presence of those who move through it. Giratina, exiled to the distortion world, represents antimatter, the shadow cast by creation, the inverse of everything Dialga and Palkia establish. In physics, antimatter annihilates matter upon contact, releasing energy in the process, and Giratina embodies this principle, not as destruction, but as necessary contrast. The distortion world is not hell, it's a mirror dimension where the rules of time and space operate in reverse, where gravity pulls in unexpected directions, where the architecture of reality bends into impossible shapes. Giratina's exile was not punishment for evil, but a precaution, a recognition that its nature, while essential, cannot coexist with the ordinary world without causing instability. In Pokemon Platinum, Giratina's role shifts from villain to protector, defending the fabric of reality from Cyrus's attempt to erase emotion and create a universe devoid of spirit. This reframing suggests that Giratina's violence is not malice, but correction, a force that ensures the world remains whole by opposing anything that seeks to unravel it. The relationship between the three is symbiotic. Dialga and Palkia create the structure of reality, and Giratina ensures that structure has depth, that light casts a shadow, that order coexists with chaos. Together, they form a trinity that reflects the dual nature of existence, that creation is not pure, but layered, that every force requires its opposite to have meaning. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Celebi's ability to travel through time offers a different perspective on temporal power, one rooted in healing rather than control. Unlike Dialga, which governs time as a universal constant, Celebi moves through time as an individual, a small guardian whose interventions are personal, localized, and deeply emotional. Wherever Celebi appears, flowers bloom out of season, forests regenerate overnight, and the wounds inflicted by human carelessness begin to close. Celebi is often called the voice of the forest, a title that suggests it speaks on behalf of nature, translating the needs of ecosystems into actions that restore balance. In Pokémon Forever, Celebi's time travel is depicted not as a grand ability, but as a desperate escape, fleeing a poacher through different eras until it finds safety in a moment where kindness still exists. This framing emphasizes Celebi's vulnerability. Despite its power, it can still be hunted, still be harmed, still need protection from those who see it as a tool rather than a life. The Ilex Forest Shrine, where Celebi is said to appear in Pokémon Crystal, is not a place of worship, but of remembrance, a quiet grove where trainers leave offerings not to summon Celebi, but to honor the idea of a world worth preserving. The GS Ball, an item tied to Celebi in early game data, was originally intended to be a key part of the storyline, but was cut before release. The ball itself remains one of the most mysterious objects in Pokémon lore, its purpose never fully explained, its connection to Celebi left ambiguous. Celebi's time travel is often interpreted as a metaphor for memory, the ability to revisit moments that have passed and carry their lessons forward. When it appears in the present, it doesn't arrive empty-handed. It brings the vitality of lost eras, the resilience of forests that once thrived, the hope that what was destroyed can be rebuilt. This makes Celebi one of the most optimistic legendaries, a being whose power is not domination, but restoration, not control, but care. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at Jirachi, the Wishmaker, and the way its mythology blends cosmic wonder with the fragility of fleeting moments. Jirachi awakens for only 7 days every 1,000 years, emerging from its crystalline slumber to grant wishes before returning to dormancy. This cycle mirrors the appearance of certain comets and meteor showers, celestial events that ancient peoples interpreted as signs from the heavens, and Jirachi's design reflects this connection, its star-shaped body evoking the image of a falling star made flesh. The Pokédex states that Jirachi absorbs energy from the stars during its millennium-long sleep, storing cosmic power in the 3 tags that hang from its head. These tags, often mistaken for decorative elements, are actually conduits, antennae, that draw in radiation from distant galaxies and convert it into the energy needed to fulfill wishes. The wishes themselves are not unlimited. Jirachi can only grant what its stored energy allows, and once that energy is depleted, it must sleep again, waiting for the stars to refill what was given. Jirachi's closed eyes are one of its most iconic features, and while many assume it's simply sleeping, the truth is more complex. Jirachi's true eyes are located on its abdomen, hidden beneath folds of skin, and they only open during the 7 days of wakefulness. The eyes on its face, the ones that remain shut, are said to be connected to its dreams, windows into the subconscious world where wishes are sorted, evaluated, and prepared for manifestation. This duality suggests that Jirachi exists in two states simultaneously, awake and asleep, present and distant, granting wishes while still dreaming of them. The bond between Jirachi and those who encounter it is always bittersweet. Its 7 days of wakefulness are never enough, never long enough to form lasting connections, and every friendship it begins must end with departure, with the knowledge that 1,000 years will pass before reunion becomes possible. In Pokemon Jirachi Wishmaker, this theme is explored through the relationship between Jirachi and a young trainer, a bond that grows deeply in less than a week, only to dissolve into absence when the stars call Jirachi back to sleep. The mythology surrounding Jirachi often emphasizes patience, the understanding that some things cannot be rushed, that waiting is not passive, but an act of faith. The people who build shrines around Jirachi's resting place do so knowing they will never see it awaken, that the wish they carve into stone will only be granted centuries after they've passed. This makes Jirachi a symbol of hope across generations, a reminder that the future is shaped by wishes planted long before it arrives. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Regi trio, Regise, Regirock, and Registeel, introduces a mythology rooted not in emotion, but in construction, in the deliberate shaping of matter into purpose. These three golems were created by Regigigas, a colossal titan said to have towed continents into their current positions, and their bodies are composed of elemental materials that predate human civilization. Regis is formed from ice that never melts. Even in the hottest climates, its body a crystalline structure that reflects light in patterns no natural glacier could produce. Regirock's body is made of ancient stone, rocks that have been compressed and weathered over eons, held together by an unknown force that defies geological explanation. When damaged, Regirock can repair itself by absorbing nearby boulders, replacing lost pieces without any visible mechanism, as if the rocks themselves remember their purpose and return to form. This self-repair ability suggests that Regirock is not a statue animated by magic, but a living geology, a being whose existence blurs the line between organism and landscape. Registeel is composed of a metal that no known analysis can identify, a substance harder than diamond, yet flexible enough to move with fluid grace. The metal does not rust, does not corrode, and shows no signs of age, despite existing for thousands of years. Scientists in the Pokemon world have attempted to study Registeel's composition, hoping to replicate it, but every sample taken disintegrates within hours of removal, as if the metal only retains its properties while part of the whole. The most enigmatic aspect of the Regi trio is the pattern of dots on their faces, arranged in configurations that resemble Braille, the writing system used by the visually impaired. This detail suggests that the ancient people who communicated with the Regis did so through touch rather than sight, pressing their hands against the golems' faces to relay commands. The chambers where the Regis are sealed require Braille to unlock, puzzles that cannot be solved through observation alone, only through physical interaction, a design choice that emphasizes accessibility and the idea that understanding doesn't always come through vision. Regigigas, their creator, is described in myth as a being of incomprehensible strength, capable of moving entire landmasses with ropes woven from unknown materials. The slow start ability it possesses in battle, a mechanic that makes it weak at first before gradually increasing in power, mirrors the way tectonic shifts occur, slow, inevitable, and unstoppable once momentum builds. Regigigas sleeps in hidden temples, bound by ancient seals that prevent it from awakening prematurely, and when it does stir, the ground trembles, not with violence, but with the weight of its presence alone. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at Darkrai and Cresselia, two beings whose existences are defined by the dreams they influence. Darkrai, often feared as a harbinger of nightmares, does not inflict terror intentionally. Its presence simply distorts the boundary between sleep and fear, causing those nearby to experience vivid, often disturbing visions. The Pokédex describes Darkrai as a lonely Pokémon, one that drifts through moonlit nights searching for connection, but every attempt to approach others results in suffering. The dreams it brings too intense for most minds to endure. Cresselia, by contrast, is the embodiment of peaceful sleep, a lunar Pokémon whose feathers can dispel nightmares and restore restful slumber. The relationship between Darkrai and Cresselia is not one of rivalry, but of balance, fear and comfort, darkness and dawn, two necessary halves of the dreaming mind. Cresselia's presence soothes the same way Darkrai's presence disturbs, not through malice or benevolence, but through the nature of what they are. In Pokémon Platinum, Darkrai is found on New Moon Island, a place that only becomes accessible after encountering a child trapped in an endless nightmare. The child's suffering is not caused by Darkrai directly, but by the fear of Darkrai, the idea that something in the dark watches, waits, and whispers. When the player confronts Darkrai, the encounter is not framed as a battle against evil, but as an opportunity to understand, to see that fear itself is not malicious, only misunderstood. Cresselia resides on Full Moon Island, a mirrored counterpart to New Moon, and its presence is immediately calming, the air softer, the light gentler. The feathers Cresselia sheds, known as lunar wings, are said to cure any ailment caused by nightmares, acting as a bridge between waking and sleeping worlds. The child who suffered from Darkrai's influence is healed by Cresselia's feather, not through erasure of the nightmare, but through the restoration of balance, the understanding that fear loses its power when met with calm. The mythology surrounding these two Pokémon often emphasizes the necessity of both, that peaceful sleep cannot exist without the possibility of nightmares, that comfort has no meaning if fear is never experienced. They are not enemies, but complements, two aspects of the same process, the mind's journey through rest and the landscapes it encounters along the way. If you're still awake halfway through, maybe subscribe before you drift off and tell me what time it is where you're watching from. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the dragons of Unova, Reshiram, and Zekrom present a mythology rooted in duality and the search for meaning through opposing lenses. These two legendary Pokémon were once a single dragon, a being of immense power that split when two brothers, each driven by different philosophies, could not reconcile their visions for the future. Reshiram embodies truth, the belief that honesty, clarity, and unwavering conviction form the foundation of a just world. Zekrom embodies ideals, the belief that aspiration, imagination, and the pursuit of better futures drive progress and change. The myth of their separation is not one of betrayal, but of difference, a recognition that truth and ideals, while both valid, often lead to different conclusions. Reshiram's fire burns blue, a flame so hot it incinerates anything false, leaving only what is real, while Zekrom's electricity crackles with potential, the energy of possibilities not yet realized. Neither dragon is right or wrong. They simply represent two paths that humanity walks, one grounded in what is, the other reaching toward what could be. Kyurem, the third dragon, is what remains when unity shatters, a hollow shell left behind when Reshiram and Zekrom departed. Its body is incomplete, frozen and fractured, a being that once held both truth and ideals, but now holds neither. Kyurem's existence is one of absence, a constant reminder that when opposing forces separate, something essential is lost, a wholeness that cannot be reclaimed through victory, only through reunion. In Pokémon Black 2 and White 2, Kyurem gains the ability to fuse with Reshiram or Zekrom, temporarily restoring a fragment of its original form. These fusions, White Kyurem and Black Kyurem, are not complete. They are approximations, gestures toward what was, but the original dragon remains out of reach. The mythology suggests that true unity cannot be forced, that Reshiram and Zekrom must choose to reunite, and until then, Kyurem will continue to wander, searching for the parts of itself that were lost. The relationship between these three dragons reflects a broader theme in Pokemon's mythology, that division is not inherently destructive, but that prolonged separation leads to emptiness. Reshiram and Zekrom thrive in their independence, each pursuing their own purpose, but Kyurem, the space between them, suffers from the absence of connection. This makes Kyurem one of the most tragic legendaries, a being defined not by what it is, but by what it no longer has. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the Alola region's legendary Pokémon, Solgaleo and Lunala, and the way their mythology reframes light and darkness as complementary forces rather than opposites. Solgaleo, the Sune Pokémon, is said to carry a star within its body, a core of solar energy that radiates outward, bending light around its form. Its presence illuminates everything not through external light, but through the light it generates internally, a warmth that transforms the space it occupies. Lunala, the Moony Pokémon, absorbs light rather than emitting it, its wings acting as conduits that draw in ambient energy and store it within its ethereal body. This doesn't make Lunala dark, but rather reflective, a being that holds light without releasing it, creating a presence that feels both shadowy and luminous. The relationship between Solgaleo and Lunala is not one of opposition, but of exchange. One gives light, the other receives it, and together they form a cycle that sustains balance. Both are said to be evolutions of Cosmog, a small, cloud-like Pokémon born from cosmic dust and starlight. Cosmog's innocence is one of its most striking features, a being of immense potential that has no awareness of its own power, no understanding of what it will become. In Pokémon Sun and Moon, the player raises a Cosmog, watching it grow from a curious, playful creature into one of the most powerful beings in existence. This transformation is not instantaneous, it's gradual, a process that mirrors the way stars form, slowly accumulating mass and energy until they reach critical density and ignite. The ultra wormholes that Solgaleo and Lunala can open are not just portals, but tiers in the fabric of space, gateways to dimensions where the rules of reality differ. These wormholes allow access to ultra space, a realm inhabited by ultra beasts, creatures that exist outside the traditional Pokémon ecosystem. The ability to traverse dimensions positions Solgaleo and Lunala as bridges, beings that connect worlds, not through conquest, but through passage, through the quiet act of opening doors and allowing others to cross. Necrozma, the Prism Pokémon, complicates this mythology by introducing the concept of light as a finite resource. In its incomplete form, Necrozma is a fractured, desperate being, constantly seeking light to sustain itself. The lore describes Necrozma as once radiant, a being that illuminated entire worlds with its brilliance, but something shattered it, reducing its light to fragments. Now it survives by absorbing the light of others, a process that leaves those it encounters dimmed, drained of the energy that sustains them. When Necrozma fuses with Solgaleo or Lunala, it temporarily restores a portion of its original power, becoming Dusk Mane Necrozma or Dawn Wings Necrozma. These forms are not complete. They are parasitic. Necrozma borrowing light, it can no longer generate on its own. The fusion is not symbiotic, it's extractive, and when the connection breaks, Necrozma returns to its fractured state, still searching, still incomplete. The Ultra Necrozma form, achieved when Necrozma absorbs enough light to briefly reclaim its full power, is described as blinding, a being so bright that looking directly at it causes physical pain. This form lasts only moments before collapsing back into darkness, a fleeting glimpse of what Necrozma once was and what it may never be again. The tragedy of Necrozma is that its need for light is insatiable, that no amount of absorption can permanently restore what was lost, that brokenness, once established, becomes a permanent state unless healed from within. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the legendary Pokémon of Kalos, Xerneas, and Yveltal introduce a philosophy centered on life and death as inseparable processes. Xerneas, the life Pokémon, embodies creation, growth, and renewal, its antlers glowing with a spectrum of colors that represent vitality in all its forms. When Xerneas walks through barren lands, flowers bloom in its wake, trees spring from soil that was once lifeless, and the air itself seems to hum with the pulse of new beginnings. Yveltal, the destruction Pokémon, represents the inevitable decline that follows growth, the entropy that reclaims energy and returns it to the void. Its wings spread wide like a predator in flight, absorbing the life force of everything nearby, leaving behind only stillness. Yveltal is not evil, it's necessary, a force that ensures nothing grows unchecked, that balance is maintained through cycles of rise and fall. The mythology of Kalos teaches that Xerneas and Yveltal are two halves of a single principle, that life cannot exist without death, and death has no meaning without life. When Xerneas exhausts its energy, it transforms into a tree, entering a dormant state where it waits for centuries before awakening again. When Yveltal depletes the life around it, it forms a cocoon, a shell of silence where it rests until the world has regenerated enough vitality to sustain its return. Zygarde, the third member of this trio, exists as a guardian of balance, a being composed of countless cells scattered across the Kalos region. These cells, individually weak, combine to form different configurations, from a small serpent-like creature to a towering humanoid figure. Zygarde's role is not to favor life or death, but to ensure that neither dominates, that the cycle continues without tilting too far in either direction. When the balance is threatened, Zygarde's cellular cells awaken, converging to restore equilibrium through intervention. The concept of balance in Kalos is not static, it's dynamic, a constant adjustment that requires vigilance and adaptation. Zygarde's many forms reflect this fluidity, that guardianship is not a single action, but an ongoing process, a series of corrections that respond to the ever-shifting needs of the ecosystem. This makes Zygarde one of the most subtle legendaries, a being whose power is not spectacle, but maintenance, not triumph, but persistence. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the Galar region's legendary Pokémon, Zacian and Zamazenta, and the way their mythology centers on memory, loyalty, and the fading of heroism over time. These two Pokémon once defended Galar from a catastrophic threat known as the Darkest Day, a crisis that nearly destroyed the region. After their victory, they were revered as heroes, their statues erected in every town, their deeds woven into songs and stories passed down through generations. But over time, memory fades, the statues crumbled, the songs were forgotten, and the names Zacian and Zamazenta became myths, then legends, then whispers, until most people in Galar no longer believed they had ever existed. The two Pokémon, aware of this fading, chose to retreat, to rust, to sleep, waiting in hidden places for the moment when belief might call them back. Their weapons, the rusted sword and rusted shield, are not relics of decay, but symbols of patience, a willingness to wait even as the world forgets. When these items are restored, Zacian and Zamazenta awaken, their forms shifting from dormant to radiant, their power not diminished by time, only resting. This transformation suggests that heroism is not a permanent state, but a response to need, that legends do not exist to be remembered, but to be present when the world calls for them again. The bond between Zacian and Zamazenta is never explicitly romantic or familial, but it is undeniably deep, a partnership forged through shared struggle and mutual respect. They fight together, rest together, and when one awakens, the other follows, as if their existences are linked at a level beyond choice. This connection mirrors the relationship between offense and defense, two approaches to protection that are meaningless without each other. Eternatus, the gigantic Pokémon, serves as the antithesis to Zacian and Zamazenta, a being of destructive energy that arrived in Galar from space thousands of years ago. Unlike most legendary Pokémon, which are tied to natural forces or mythological concepts, Eternatus is an invader, a cosmic entity whose presence warps the environment, causing Pokémon to grow to enormous sizes and lose control of their own power. The Darkest Day was not a natural disaster. It was the result of Eternatus awakening, releasing energy that nearly consumed the region. Eternatus's core is described as an infinite source of energy, a wellspring that never depletes, and this endless output is both its strength and its danger. The Dynamax phenomenon, which allows Pokémon to temporarily grow in size and power, is directly tied to Eternatus, a side effect of its presence leaking into the environment. When Eternatus is captured, the energy doesn't stop. It's simply contained, redirected, used by trainers who may not fully understand the source of the power they wield. The design of Eternatus, skeletal and alien, suggests that it is not from the Pokémon world, but from somewhere beyond, a place where the rules of life and death operate differently. Its arrival is described as a meteor strike, a collision that scarred the land and left behind a wound that still pulses with energy. The fact that Zacian and Zamazenta were able to seal it rather than destroy it implies that Eternatus cannot be killed, only subdued, that its nature is too fundamental to erase, too vast to eliminate. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the mythical Pokémon, smaller and often more elusive than their legendary counterparts, offer a different kind of mythology, one rooted in personal encounters rather than world-shaping events. Mew, for example, is not a god or a titan, but a wanderer, a Pokémon whose existence is so rare that most people believe it to be extinct. The Pokédex describes Mew as the ancestor of all Pokémon, possessing DNA so adaptable that it can learn any move, transform into any shape, and survive in any environment. Mew's playfulness is one of its defining traits, a being of immense power that chooses curiosity over dominance, exploration over control. In Pokémon the first movie, Mew is portrayed as innocent, almost childlike, floating through the air with a sense of wonder, unaware of the conflict its existence has caused. This innocence contrasts sharply with Mewtwo's anger, highlighting the difference between a being that exists naturally and one that was forced into existence through human ambition. The myth that Mew once inhabited every corner of the world, but retreated as human civilization expanded, suggests that its rarity is not accidental, but deliberate, a choice to remain hidden, to observe from a distance rather than engage. The few trainers who have encountered Mew describe the experience as dreamlike, a moment so brief and surreal that it feels more like memory than reality. Shaman, the gratitude Pokémon, offers a different perspective on mythical encounters, one centered on healing and the quiet expression of thanks. Shaman absorbs toxins from the air and converts them into flowers, purifying polluted environments through a process that seems almost miraculous. The Pokédex states that Shaman migrates to the Flower Paradise, a hidden location that only appears when Gracidea flowers bloom, and this migration is not solitary. Shaman travels in groups, moving together like flocks of birds, their presence a signal that the air is clean, the land is recovering. Shaman's sky form, achieved when it holds a Gracidea flower, transforms it from a small hedgehog-like creature into a sleek, airborne form capable of incredible speed. This transformation is temporary, reversing at night or when Shaman is frozen, a detail that suggests the sky form is not Shaman's true nature, but a gift, a state of being that requires specific conditions to maintain. The flower itself is said to bloom only in gratitude, responding to acts of kindness and care, which means that Shaman's transformation is not just physical, but emotional, a reflection of the world's appreciation made visible. Victini, the victory Pokémon, carries a mythology centered on luck and the way belief influences outcomes. The Pokédex states that trainers who have Victini on their team never lose, a claim that raises questions about free will, destiny, and the nature of probability. Victini's power is not to grant victory directly, but to subtly shift circumstances, to ensure that critical moments resolve in favor of those it chooses to support. This makes Victini's presence both comforting and unsettling, a being whose influence is invisible, whose assistance cannot be measured or proven, only felt. The trainers who benefit from Victini's power often don't realize it, attributing their success to skill, strategy, or luck, unaware that something deeper is guiding their path. Victini's small size and cheerful demeanor mask the enormity of its influence, a reminder that power does not always announce itself, that the most profound forces often work in silence. Keldeo, the cult Pokémon, represents growth, training, and the journey from student to master. As the youngest member of the Swords of Justice, Keldeo begins as an apprentice, learning from Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, 3 legendary Pokémon who dedicate themselves to protecting the weak. Keldeo's horn, initially short and blunt, extends as it gains confidence, a physical manifestation of its development, and when it finally masters the move Secret Sword, its horn transforms into a blade, a symbol that it has earned its place among the legends. The mythology surrounding Keldeo emphasizes that heroism is not innate, but cultivated, that strength comes from effort, mentorship, and the willingness to face fear. Keldeo's journey is not about discovering hidden power, but about building it moment by moment through practice, failure, and perseverance. This makes Keldeo one of the most relatable legendaries, a being whose struggles mirror the challenges faced by any trainer learning to navigate the world. Meloetta, the Melody Pokémon, carries a mythology rooted in the relationship between art and emotion, sound and memory. Meloetta is said to have lost its voice during a war that devastated its homeland, the trauma so profound that it could no longer sing. When it finally regained its voice, the melody it produced was so beautiful that it restored color to the world, a testament to the healing power of creativity, the way expression can rebuild what violence has shattered. Meloetta's 2 forms, aria form and pirouette form, represent different aspects of artistic expression, one focused on harmony and melody, the other on movement and rhythm. The transformation between forms is triggered by the move Relic Song, a melody that resonates with ancient history, with the memory of a time when Meloetta's song was heard across the land. This detail suggests that Meloetta's power is not just personal, but cultural, a force that connects generations through sound, through the act of creation and the act of remembering. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Genesect, the Paleozoic Pokémon, presents a mythology that blends ancient history with modern technology, a creature that was once a natural predator, fossilized for millions of years, and then resurrected and enhanced by Team Plasma. The Pokédex describes Genesect as the most powerful bug-type Pokémon in existence, its body augmented with a cannon that can fire beams of various types, depending on the drive installed. This transformation from natural creature to weaponized tool raises ethical questions about the boundaries of science, about whether resurrection is an act of preservation or exploitation. Genesect did not choose to return, did not consent to the modifications made to its body, and the result is a being caught between two identities, neither fully ancient nor fully modern, a relic turned weapon, a life turned artifact. The 5 Genesect featured in Pokémon Extreme, Speed Genesect, Mewtwo Awakens, highlight this internal conflict as they struggle to understand their place in a world that has moved on without them. The Red Genesect, the leader, is driven by anger and confusion, lashing out at the unfamiliarity, while the others follow, uncertain, searching for purpose. Their encounter with Mewtwo, another being created through human intervention, becomes a mirror, 2 experiments recognizing the loneliness in each other, the shared experience of being made rather than born. Diancie, the Jewel Pokémon, offers a mythology centered on transformation, beauty, and the pressure that creates both. Diancie is a mutated Carbink, a Pokémon that typically lives deep underground, absorbing minerals and forming crystals within its body. Under specific conditions, a Carbink can undergo a mutation, its body crystallizing into a more complex form, becoming Diancie, a being capable of creating diamonds from thin air. The Pokédex describes Diancie as the Princess of the Diamond Domain, a hidden kingdom where Carbink gather, and this title suggests that Diancie's mutation is not random, but a response to need, a transformation that occurs when the community requires a protector. Diancie's ability to create diamonds is not just a display of power, but an act of care, providing resources, light, and beauty to those who rely on it. Diancie's mega evolution further emphasizes this theme, as its body becomes even more radiant, its crystalline structure reaching a state of near perfection. The transformation is temporary, a burst of brilliance that cannot be sustained indefinitely, and when it fades, Diancie returns to its base form, still powerful, still beautiful, but no longer shining with the intensity of its peak. This cycle of rise and return suggests that transformation is not a final state, but a process, that growth and rest are both necessary, that perfection is a moment, not a permanence. Hoopa, the Mischief Pokémon, introduces a mythology rooted in power unchecked, freedom unbound, and the consequences of greed. Hoopa's unbound form, a towering 6-armed giant, is capable of summoning anything it desires through portals it creates with its rings. In ancient times, Hoopa used this power recklessly, stealing treasures, causing chaos, and bending reality to its whims, until the people of the desert region where it lived could no longer endure the disruption. A group of travelers bound Hoopa, sealing its power and reducing it to a smaller, confined form, a being that could still create portals, but only small ones, only enough to play tricks rather than reshape the world. The prison bottle, the artifact used to contain Hoopa, is not a punishment, but a safeguard, a recognition that some beings need limits, not because they are evil, but because their nature, left unchecked, leads to imbalance. When Hoopa is released from the bottle, it returns to its unbound form, its power fully restored, but the experience of confinement has changed it. The mythology suggests that Hoopa's time in its confined form taught it humility, that the reduction of power was not a loss, but a lesson, a chance to understand that freedom without responsibility leads to isolation. The relationship between Hoopa's 2 forms reflects the tension between desire and restraint, between the impulse to take everything and the wisdom to accept enough. Volcanion, the steam Pokemon, carries a mythology centered on protection, particularly the defense of Pokemon from human exploitation. Volcanion is said to inhabit a hidden region, a sanctuary where Pokemon who have been harmed or abandoned by humans can find refuge. The steam it releases from the vents on its back is hot enough to shroud entire mountains in mist, creating a barrier that prevents outsiders from finding the sanctuary, a natural defense that relies on atmosphere rather than aggression. The Pokédex describes Volcanion as distrustful of humans, a stance rooted not in inherent animosity, but in experience, in the knowledge that humanity's relationship with Pokémon is not always kind. Volcanion's presence is a reminder that not all legendary Pokémon view humans as allies, that some maintain distance, some build walls, and some choose solitude over the risk of betrayal. When Volcanion does interact with humans, it does so cautiously, testing their intentions, watching their actions, and only offering trust after it has been earned. This makes Volcanion one of the most guarded legendaries, a being whose mythology emphasizes that respect must be mutual, that protection extends not just to the land, but to the autonomy of those who inhabit it. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Magearna, the artificial Pokemon, presents a unique mythology, a legendary created not by nature or myth, but by human hands. Magearna was built by a scientist over 500 years ago as a gift for a princess, a companion designed to bring joy and comfort. Its body is composed of intricate gears and mechanisms, a marvel of engineering that predates modern technology by centuries, suggesting that the knowledge used to create Magearna has since been lost, a forgotten art that no contemporary inventor can replicate. At the center of Magearna's chest is the Soul Heart, a mysterious artifact that gives it life, a component that defies mechanical explanation. The Soul Heart is not a machine, but something closer to a spirit, a core of consciousness that allows Magearna to feel, to learn, and to empathize with the emotions of others. This combination of machine and soul raises profound questions about the nature of life, about whether a being must be born to be alive, or if creation through care and intention is equally valid. Magearna's ability to sense the emotions of Pokemon around it allows it to respond to suffering, to approach those in pain, and offer comfort through its presence. The Pokédex states that Magearna can absorb the life force of fallen Pokemon, storing their energy within its soul heart, a process that is not extraction, but remembrance, a way of ensuring that those who pass are not forgotten, that their essence continues, held gently within Magearna's core. The mythology surrounding Magearna often emphasizes that it was built with love, not ambition, that its creation was an act of devotion rather than experimentation. This distinguishes Magearna from other artificially created Pokemon like Mewtwo or Genesect, beings whose existences were driven by the desire for power or control. Magearna's purpose was never conquest, only companionship, a reminder that technology shaped by care can result in something beautiful, something that transcends its origins. Marshadow, the Gloom Dweller Pokemon, exists in the margins, a being that watches from shadows, observing battles without ever being seen. The Pokédex describes Marshadow as shy, a Pokemon that avoids direct confrontation, preferring to hide in the shadows of others and copy their movements. This mimicry is not mockery, but learning, a way of understanding strength through observation, of absorbing technique without the need to fight. Marshadow's connection to the concept of the true heir in Pokemon mythology suggests that it serves as a judge, a being that determines whether someone is worthy of wielding great power. In Pokemon the movie, I Choose You, Marshadow tests the protagonist, watching from the darkness, evaluating their heart, their resolve, and their intentions. Only after this assessment does Marshadow intervene, not to grant power, but to acknowledge that the person has already earned it. This role as a silent observer positions Marshadow as one of the most introspective legendaries, a being whose power is not in domination, but in discernment, in the ability to see past surface actions and understand the deeper motivations that drive behavior. Marshadow's presence is a reminder that not all strength is visible, that some forces work best when unnoticed, that judgment need not be loud to be profound. Zeraora, the Thunderclap Pokémon, carries a mythology centered on speed, precision, and the relationship between power and control. Unlike most electric-type Pokémon, Zeraora does not generate electricity internally. Instead, it absorbs ambient electrical energy from the environment, storing it in its body and releasing it in concentrated bursts. This makes Zeraora a conduit rather than a source, a being that channels energy rather than creating it, a subtle but significant distinction. The Pokédex describes Zeraora as fiercely protective of its territory, defending it not through aggression, but through overwhelming speed, moving so quickly that opponents cannot react before the battle is over. This emphasis on efficiency, on ending conflicts before they escalate, suggests that Zeraora's strength is not in prolonged combat, but in decisive action, in the ability to assess a situation and respond with perfect timing. Zeraora's relationship with humans is complicated, as it is known to save people from danger, but only when it chooses to, never out of obligation or expectation. This autonomy, this refusal to be bound by duty, positions Zeraora as a free agent, a legendary that acts according to its own moral compass, helping when it deems the cause just, but refusing when it does not. This makes Zeraora one of the most independent legendaries, a being whose loyalty cannot be assumed, only earned. Melton and Melmetal introduce a mythology that blends ancient history with contemporary discovery, small metallic Pokémon whose existence was only recently confirmed. Melton is described as a living puddle of liquid metal, capable of dissolving and reforming its body at will, and when multiple Melton gather, they can merge together, forming Melmetal, a towering titan composed of countless individual bodies fused into a single, cohesive form. The process of this fusion is not violent, but collaborative, each Melton contributing its essence to the whole, creating something greater than any individual could achieve alone. Melmetal's body, composed of liquid metal that has hardened into structural forms, reflects this unity, each plate and joint a testament to cooperation, to the idea that strength is not always singular, but collective. The Pokédex states that Melmetal was revered in ancient times as a Pokémon that could create metal tools, and that it was worshipped by early human civilizations as a deity of industry and progress. This historical connection suggests that Melton and Melmetal have existed alongside humanity for millennia, shaping the development of technology, influencing the way people interact with the world, even if their presence has since faded into obscurity. The rediscovery of Melton in modern times, particularly through the Pokémon Go integration, frames the species as something that was never truly lost, only overlooked, a reminder that the world still holds mysteries, that new discoveries are possible even in familiar places. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Zarude, the rogue monkey Pokémon, presents a mythology centered on isolation, community, and the choice to leave or stay. Zarude lives in packs deep within dense jungles, and these packs operate under strict social rules, with each member contributing to the survival of the group. The Pokédex describes Zarude as aggressive toward outsiders, fiercely defending its territory from intruders, but this aggression is not cruelty, it's protection, a response to the vulnerability of communal living. What makes Zarude unique is the concept of the rogue, a Zarude that chooses to leave the pack, either by exile or by choice. These rogue Zarude wander alone, no longer bound by the rules of the group, and this independence comes at a cost: the safety and support of the pack exchanged for the freedom to act without consensus. The mythology surrounding rogue Zarude often emphasizes that this decision is not taken lightly, that leaving the pack means accepting solitude, but also accepting the possibility of forming new connections outside the rigid structure of communal life. In Pokémon the movie, Secrets of the Jungle, a rogue Zarude raises a human child, a choice that would be unthinkable within the pack, but possible in isolation. This act of care, of choosing to protect a being from a different species, highlights the flexibility that comes with independence, the ability to form bonds based on compassion rather than tradition. Zarude's vines, which grow from its wrists and neck, are not just tools for mobility, but extensions of its body, capable of sensing changes in the environment, detecting threats, and even healing wounds by wrapping around injuries. This connection to the jungle, to the life that thrives within it, positions Zarude as both part of the ecosystem and protector of it, a being whose survival is tied to the health of the forest. Regieleki and Regidrago, the newest additions to the Regi family, expand the mythology of Regigigas and its creations by introducing Pokémon based on energy and incomplete potential. Regieleki is composed entirely of electrical energy, a being without a physical body, only a containment vessel that holds the electricity in a stable form. The Pokédex describes Regieleki as possessing enough energy to power an entire region, and this surplus suggests that Regieleki was not meant to exist in its current form, but was sealed because its power exceeded what the world could safely absorb. Regidrago, by contrast, is incomplete, a being that Regigigas began to create but never finished. Its body is composed of crystallized dragon energy, but only the head was completed before Regigigas ran out of material, or time, or will. The result is a partial dragon, a fragment of what was intended, and this incompletion is not weakness, but unfulfilled potential, a being that exists in the space between concept and reality. The seals that contain Regieleki and Regidrago are more than prisons. They are preservations, safeguards that prevent these Pokémon from destabilizing the regions they inhabit. The decision to unseal them is not just about gaining power, but about accepting responsibility for what that power unleashes, a choice that requires understanding the consequences of releasing beings that were contained for a reason. Glastrier and Spectrier, the steeds of Calyrex, represent two approaches to strength: physical dominance and ethereal swiftness. Glastrier embodies raw, unyielding force, its body composed of ice so dense that nothing can penetrate it, its hooves capable of freezing the ground with every step. Spectrier, by contrast, is a ghostly presence, a being that moves through the world without touching it, absorbing life energy from the plants and creatures it passes, leaving only withered silence in its wake. Calyrex, the king Pokémon, once ruled over the Crown Tundra, a region of harsh cold and sparse vegetation, and its reign was not one of tyranny, but of balance, ensuring that life could persist even in the most inhospitable conditions. The bond between Calyrex and its steed is not ownership, but partnership, a relationship where both beings benefit, where the steed's strength enhances Calyrex's ability to govern, and Calyrex's wisdom guides the steed's power toward purpose rather than destruction. The story of Calyrex's decline, its fading from memory as the people of the Crown Tundra forgot its contributions, mirrors the broader theme of legendary Pokémon, whose influence wanes when belief disappears. Calyrex does not demand worship, but its power is sustained by recognition, by the acknowledgement that its presence once mattered, and without that acknowledgement, it becomes a ghost, a faint echo of what it was. When Cacalyrex is reunited with its steed, the transformation is immediate. Its power restored, its presence solidified. This suggests that legendary Pokémon are not independent of the world they inhabit, but woven into it, sustained by the same forces they protect, a reminder that even gods need something beyond themselves to remain whole. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Treasures of Ruin, 4 Pokémon sealed within shrines across the Paldea region, introduce a mythology centered on greed, desire, and the consequences of unchecked ambition. Wo-Chien, the snail Pokémon, was formed from the grudges written on wooden tablets, each tablet a record of envy, resentment, and bitterness. Over time, these emotions accumulated, condensing into a being that embodies negativity, a creature whose presence spreads despair and withers plant life. Chien Pao, the cat-like Pokémon, was born from a sword stained with the hatred of those it killed, their rage seeping into the metal until the blade itself became sentient, a predator driven by the memory of violence. Ting Lu, the moose-like Pokémon, emerged from a ceremonial vessel used in rituals of fear, the terror of countless participants coalescing into a physical form. Chi-Yu, the fish-like Pokémon, was created from the envy pooled in jewels stolen and hoarded, their beauty tainted by the greed of those who coveted them. These 4 Pokémon are not inherently evil. They are manifestations of human emotion, reflections of the darker aspects of desire, and their existence serves as a warning. The shrines that contain them are not punishment, but necessity, acknowledgments that some feelings, when given form, become too dangerous to leave unchecked. The decision to unseal these Pokémon is not just about releasing power, but about confronting the emotions they represent, about understanding that the Treasures of Ruin are not external threats, but internal ones made visible. Koraidon and Miraidon, the Paradox Pokémon, blur the boundaries between past and future, ancient and advanced, primal and mechanical. Koraidon resembles a prehistoric reptile, its body covered in scales and feathers, its movements wild and instinctive. Miraidon, by contrast, is sleek and futuristic, its body composed of metallic, plating and glowing circuitry, its movements precise and calculated. Both are said to have arrived in Paldea through mysterious means, their origins unclear, their presence unexplained. The concept of paradox Pokémon suggests that time is not linear, that past and future can coexist, that creatures from different eras can occupy the same space without contradiction. Koraidon and Miraidon do not fight each other, they simply exist, 2 expressions of the same concept, 2 answers to the question of what it means to be powerful. This duality reflects a broader theme in Pokémon's mythology, that opposites do not cancel each other out, but enhance each other, that difference is not conflict, but perspective. The relationship between the player and their Koraidon or Miraidon in Pokémon Scarlet and Violet is one of companionship, not dominance. These Pokémon are not captured in the traditional sense. They choose to travel with the player, choosing to assist, to protect, to explore together. This voluntary bond positions them as equals rather than servants, a dynamic that reframes the traditional trainer-Pokémon relationship into something closer to partnership. Ogerpon, the mask Pokémon, carries a mythology rooted in misunderstanding, fear, and the slow process of reconciliation. Ogerpon arrived in the Kitakami region wearing masks that allowed it to channel different types of energy, and the people of the region, unfamiliar with its appearance, reacted with suspicion and hostility. The myths that formed around Ogerpon painted it as a dangerous outsider, a threat to be driven away, and these myths persisted for generations, shaping the way the community viewed anyone or anything different. The truth, revealed slowly through fragments of old stories, is that Ogerpon was never hostile, only misunderstood, its masks a form of self-expression rather than aggression. The people's fear was not Ogerpon's fault, but a reflection of their own discomfort with the unfamiliar, a reminder that myths are not always accurate, that the stories passed down through generations can distort as much as they preserve. Ogerpon's 4 masks, each representing a different aspect of its identity, symbolize the complexity of selfhood, the idea that a single being can hold multiple truths, that identity is not fixed, but fluid, shaped by context and need. The teal mask, the wellspring mask, the hearthflame mask, and the cornerstone mask each allow Ogerpon to adapt to different challenges, to meet the world on its own terms, and this adaptability is not weakness, but resilience, the ability to remain whole while shifting form. The loyal 3, Okidogi, Munkadori, and Fazandipiti, are framed in Kitakami mythology as heroes, but their story is more complicated, a tale of ambition, envy, and the manipulation of public perception. These 3 Pokemon were once weak, ordinary, until they consumed mochi infused with toxic energy, gaining strength and notoriety. They used this newfound power to position themselves as protectors, as legends, but their heroism was performance, a mask worn to gain admiration and control. The relationship between the Loyal 3 and Ogerpon is central to the mythology of Kitakami, as it was the Loyal 3 who spread the lies about Ogerpon, who turned the community against it, who ensured that their version of events became the accepted truth. This act of narrative manipulation highlights the power of stories, the way history is written by those who control the telling, and the difficulty of correcting a lie once it has taken root. When the truth is finally revealed, the community must grapple with the realization that they have been honoring the wrong heroes, that the being they feared was innocent, and the beings they celebrated were deceivers. This reckoning is not simple. It requires admitting fault, reassessing deeply held beliefs, and learning to see the world through a new lens. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Terrapagos, the tiny turtle Pokemon, introduces a mythology centered on transformation, crystallization, and the energy that connects all Pokemon. Terrapagos is said to be the source of the Terrastall phenomenon, a process that allows Pokemon to temporarily change their type by crystallizing energy around their bodies. This energy, known as Terrastall energy, is described as ancient, older than recorded history, and Terrapagos is the key that unlocks it, a being whose very existence generates the phenomenon. The Pokédex describes Terrapagos as having 3 forms: normal, Terrastall, and stellar, each representing a different level of energy output. In its normal form, Terrapagos is small, unassuming, a turtle whose shell glimmers faintly with internal light. In its Terrastall form, the shell expands, revealing intricate patterns of crystallized energy, a structure that resembles both a gemstone and a map of the cosmos. In its stellar form, Terrapagos fully unleashes its power, its body radiating light in all directions, a miniature star that burns too brightly to sustain indefinitely. The mythology surrounding Terrapagos often emphasizes that it is not a god, but a catalyst, a being whose purpose is not to rule, but to enable, to provide the energy that allows others to transform, to grow, to reach their potential. This makes Terrapagos one of the most selfless legendaries, a being whose power is not hoarded, but shared, whose existence benefits the entire ecosystem. The Area Zero, the massive crater in the center of Paldea, where Terrapagos is found, is described as a place where time behaves strangely, where the boundaries between past, present, and future Blur. The paradox Pokémon that inhabit this area are said to have emerged from this temporal instability, creatures that should not exist simultaneously, but do, held in place by the energy Terrapagos generates. This connection between Terrapagos and the paradoxes suggests that the turtle is not just a source of terrestrial energy, but a stabilizer, a being that holds the fabric of time together, preventing it from unraveling completely. Pecharunt, the subjugation Pokémon, presents a mythology centered on control, sweetness, and the dangers of irresistible temptation. Pecharunt produces mochi, infused with its own toxic energy, and those who consume this mochi become enthralled, their wills subverted, their actions no longer their own. The Pokédex describes Pecharunt as manipulative, a being that thrives on influence, on the ability to reshape others' desires until they align with its own. The story of Pecharunt is tied to the Loyal Three, as it was Pecharunt who provided the toxic mochi that granted them their strength, and in return, the Loyal Three became its servants, spreading its influence throughout Kitakami. This relationship highlights the transactional nature of Pecharunt's power. It offers gifts, but those gifts come with strings, with obligations that bind the recipient long after the initial exchange. The mythology surrounding Pecharunt often frames it not as evil, but as amoral, a being that pursues its goals without concern for the autonomy of others, without understanding that control is not the same as connection. This makes Pecharunt one of the most unsettling legendaries, a Pokémon whose danger lies not in physical strength, but in psychological manipulation, in the slow erosion of self that comes from accepting something that seems too good to refuse. When Pecharunt is defeated, the mochi it produces loses its potency, and those who were enthralled slowly regain their autonomy. This recovery is not instant. It requires time, reflection, and the support of others, a reminder that the effects of manipulation linger, that freedom is not a single moment, but a gradual process of reclaiming one's own will. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the Ultra Beasts, creatures from dimensions beyond the traditional Pokémon world, introduce a mythology centered on alienation, adaptation, and the clash between incompatible ecosystems. Nihilego, the parasite Pokémon, exists as a jellyfish-like being that latches onto hosts, injecting them with neurotoxins that alter their behavior, turning them into extensions of itself. This parasitic relationship is not malicious. It's simply Nihilego's method of survival, a strategy that works in its home dimension but causes chaos in the Pokémon world. Buzzwole, the swollen Pokémon, possesses a physique so exaggerated that it seems impossible, muscles layered upon muscles, a body built for overwhelming physical force. In its own dimension, this form is necessary, adapted to an environment where strength determines survival, but in the Pokémon world, Buzzwole's presence is jarring, a being that doesn't fit, that disrupts the balance simply by existing. Pheromosa, the Lissome Pokémon, moves with such speed and grace that it appears to glide, its body so light that it seems weightless. The Pokédex describes Pheromosa as disgusted by the Pokémon world, viewing everything it encounters as dirty beneath it, and this disdain is not arrogance, but incompatibility, a reaction to an environment that feels fundamentally wrong. Xurkitree, the glowing Pokémon, absorbs electrical energy, its body a living conduit that draws power from any source it can find. In the Pokémon world, this makes Xurkitree a threat to power grids, infrastructure, and anything that relies on electricity, but in its home dimension, this absorption is natural, a necessary process for sustaining life. Celesteela, the launch Pokémon, resembles a rocket, its body designed for propulsion, for escape velocity, for journeys that transcend gravity. The Pokédex states that Celesteela's body contains immense amounts of stored fuel, and when ignited, it can achieve speeds that allow it to leave the planet entirely. This suggests that Celesteela is not native to any single world, but a traveler, a being whose purpose is to move between dimensions, to carry something from one place to another. Kartana, the drawn sword Pokémon, is composed of paper-thin material that is somehow sharper than any blade, capable of slicing through steel with ease. The fragility of its form is deceptive, as Kartana's thinness allows it to move without resistance, to cut without an effort, and this efficiency makes it one of the most dangerous Ultra Beasts, a being whose power lies in precision rather than force. Guzzlord, the Junkivore Pokémon, consumes everything, its appetite endless, its body a void that never fills. The Pokédex describes Guzzlord as capable of devouring entire buildings, landscapes, ecosystems, leaving nothing behind but emptiness. In its home dimension, this consumption may serve a purpose, recycling matter, breaking down structures, but in the Pokémon world, Guzzlord is an existential threat, a being whose presence accelerates entropy. The relationship between Ultra Beasts and the Pokémon world is fundamentally one of incompatibility. Creatures from dimensions with different physical laws, different survival strategies, different definitions of what it means to exist. When Ultra Beasts cross into the Pokémon world, they do not adapt, they persist, maintaining their own nature, even when that nature causes destruction. This makes them not villains, but symptoms, evidence that reality is not singular, that the universe contains spaces where the familiar does not apply. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the story of Cosmog, the Nebula Pokémon, offers a mythology centered on innocence, growth, and the journey from potential to realization. Cosmog is described as the smallest and weakest of the legendary Pokémon, a cloud-like being that drifts aimlessly, unaware of its own significance. The Pokédex dates that Cosmog is born from ultra wormholes, a byproduct of dimensional rifts, a fragment of space itself given form. Despite its fragility, Cosmog contains immense potential, its body a vessel for energy that will eventually grow into Solgaleo or Lunala. This transformation is not instantaneous. It requires time, care, and exposure to light, and the process mirrors the way stars form, slowly accumulating mass until they reach the point where fusion ignites, where potential becomes power. The bond between Cosmog and the player in Pokémon Sun and Moon is one of the most tender in the series, as the player does not capture Cosmog through battle, but receives it as a companion, a being that chooses to stay, that trusts enough to remain vulnerable. This trust is significant, as Cosmog's evolution into Cosmoem and then into Solgaleo or Lunala represents a loss of innocence, a transition from carefree drifting to purposeful existence, from play to responsibility. Cosmoem, the protostar Pokémon, is the intermediate stage, a dense, motionless core that resembles a miniature star on the verge of ignition. The Pokédex describes Cosmoem as impossibly heavy, its mass so concentrated that it warps the space around it, and this density reflects the internal process occurring within, the compression of energy, the preparation for transformation. Cosmoem cannot move, cannot act, can only wait, and this waiting is not passive but essential, a pause that allows the final evolution to occur. When Cosmoem evolves into Solgaleo or Lunala, the transformation is immediate, a burst of light that reveals the fully realized form. The choice between sun and moon is not random, but determined by the world in which the evolution occurs, by the energy Cosmoem has absorbed, by the path the player has walked. This suggests that legendary Pokémon are not fixed, but responsive, shaped by their environment, by the relationships they form, by the experiences they accumulate. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the type. Null evolutionary line, creatures designed to be weapons against ultra beasts, but became symbols of identity, autonomy, and the rejection of imposed purpose. Type. Null was created by the Ether Foundation as a synthetic Pokémon, its body composed of genetic material from multiple species stitched together into a chimera designed to adapt to any threat. The mask it wears, heavy and restrictive, was installed to suppress its power, to prevent it from rampaging, a precaution that turned type Null into a prisoner within its own body. When type Null evolves into Silvally, the mask shatters, and the transformation is not just physical, but symbolic, a rejection of control, a reclamation of self. Silvally's ability to change its type through the use of memory disks reflects this newfound freedom, the capacity to adapt without restriction, to become whatever the situation requires without losing the core of what it is. The relationship between type, Null, and Gladion in Pokémon Sun and Moon highlights this theme, as Gladion recognizes that type Null is not a weapon, but a life, and his decision to free it, to allow it to evolve, to trust it with its own power, represents a fundamental respect for autonomy. This bond, built on trust rather than dominance, positions Silvally as one of the most hopeful legendaries, a being that was designed for destruction but chose connection. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the concept of legendary Pokémon as guardians rather than rulers becomes clearer through the stories of the Tapu, the island deities of Alola. Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, Tapu Bulu, and Tapu Fini each protect one of the 4 islands, their presence not a constant watch, but an occasional intervention, a reminder that the sacred exists alongside the ordinary, that divinity is not distant, but woven into daily life. Tapu Koko, the land spirit Pokémon, is described as curious and playful, a deity that engages with humans not out of duty, but out of interest. Its shell, which can close around its body, serves as both protection and boundary, a physical manifestation of the choice to engage or withdraw. Tapu Koko's appearance is often sudden, a flash of electricity, a burst of energy, and then absence, a pattern that reflects the unpredictability of divine attention. Tapu Lele, the land spirit Pokémon, spreads glowing scales that have healing properties, but the Pokédex warns that these scales can also cause madness if absorbed in excess. This duality, the capacity to heal or harm depending on dosage, reflects the complexity of Tapu Lele's nature, a being that offers gifts without guaranteeing safety, that provides power without controlling its use. Tapu Bulu, the land spirit Pokémon, is described as lazy, a deity that prefers stillness over action, intervention only when absolutely necessary. Its horns, which resemble a bell, produce a sound that commands respect, and when Tapu Bulu moves, it does so with deliberate slowness, a reminder that speed is not always strength, that patience can be its own form of power. Tapu Fini, the land spirit Pokémon, creates a mist that purifies the body and mind, but this purification is harsh, stripping away not just impurities, but also memories, leaving those who enter the mist cleansed but diminished. The mythology surrounding Tapu Fini often emphasizes that purity comes at a cost, that to be free of burden, one must also be free of history, and this trade is not always worth making. The Tapu are not worshipped in the traditional sense. They are respected, acknowledged, and occasionally feared, but not revered as distant gods. Their presence is felt in the rituals of the island communities, in the shrines that mark their territories, in the stories passed down through generations. This grounded divinity, this sense that the sacred is accessible, positions the Tapu as some of the most relatable legendaries, beings whose power is undeniable, but whose presence is familiar. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the legendary beasts Raikou, Entei, and Suicune, and the way their resurrection by Ho-Oh shaped their identities. These three Pokemon are not just revived, they are transformed, their original forms lost, their new bodies embodying the elements that both destroyed and renewed them. Raikou's speed mirrors the strike of lightning, a force that moves faster than thought, faster than reaction, and its roar echoes across valleys, a sound that carries the memory of the storm that birthed it. Entei's flames are said to erupt from its body whenever it roars, and this connection between voice and fire suggests that Entei's anger, its grief, is inseparable from its power. The Pokédex describes Entei as wandering in search of strength, a journey that never ends, a quest that has no destination, only movement. This restlessness reflects the trauma of death and rebirth, the knowledge that the life it now lives is not the one it began with, that it carries the fire within because the fire is all that remains. Suicune's purification of water, its ability to cleanse pollution and restore clarity, is often interpreted as a form of healing, but it can also be seen as a compulsion, a need to undo the damage caused by the fire to restore what was lost. Suicune's grace, its elegance, masks the intensity of this drive, the relentless pursuit of balance that defines its existence. The North Wind, as Suicune is sometimes called, does not settle, does not rest, does not remain, always moving toward the next body of water that needs cleansing, the next place where purity has been compromised. The relationship between the three beasts is never explicitly defined, but their shared origin suggests a bond, a connection forged through shared death and shared resurrection. They do not travel together, but they exist in relation to one another, three aspects of a single event, three responses to the same loss. This makes them one of the most cohesive legendary trios, not because they cooperate, but because they carry the same history, the same weight, the same quiet understanding that they are not what they once were and never will be again. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the mythology of the Lake Guardians, Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf, offers a perspective on the intangible forces that define consciousness, the invisible structures that allow beings to think, feel, and choose. Uxie, the knowledge Pokemon, is said to hold all wisdom, every piece of information that has ever been learned, every truth that has ever been discovered. The Pokédex warns that those who look into Uxie's eyes will lose their memories, their minds wiped clean by the overwhelming presence of infinite knowledge. This erasure is not malice, but protection, a recognition that the human mind cannot contain everything, that some knowledge is too vast to hold without losing the self. Uxie's closed eyes, a design choice that mirrors Jirachi, suggest that it does not look outward, but inward, that its wisdom is not observation, but reflection, the turning of knowledge back on itself until understanding deepens beyond surface facts. Mesprit, the emotion Pokemon, embodies the capacity to feel, the spectrum of joy, sorrow, fear, and love that defines sentient experience. The Pokédex states that Mesprit taught humanity how to feel, that before its influence, people existed without emotional depth, their lives functional but hollow. This origin story positions emotion not as a natural state, but as a gift, a learned capacity that transforms existence from mechanical to meaningful. Mesprit's tendency to flee when approached reflects the fragility of emotion, the way feelings can slip away when grasped too tightly, when examined too closely. The bond between Mesprit and those who encounter it is always delicate, built on mutual respect, on the understanding that emotion cannot be forced, only invited, only nurtured through patience and care. Azelf, the willpower Pokemon, represents the force that allows beings to act, to choose, to resist, to persist. The Pokédex describes Azelf as the source of determination, the invisible strength that prevents despair from collapsing into inertia, that pushes action forward even when hope fades. Without Azelf, the mythology suggests, beings would exist without agency, their thoughts and feelings present but powerless, unable to manifest in the world. Azelf's small size, its unassuming appearance, contrasts sharply with the enormity of its influence, a reminder that will is not loud, not always visible, but present in every decision, every refusal, every moment where stagnation is rejected in favor of movement. The Lake Guardians, taken together, form a trinity that mirrors the creation trio, not in scale, but in function, where Dialga, Palkia, and Giratina provide the framework of reality. Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf provide the framework of self, the structures that allow consciousness to navigate the universe they inhabit. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at Latias and Latios, the Eon Pokémon, and the way their mythology emphasizes connection, communication, and the bond between siblings. These two Pokémon are often found together, their presence synchronized, their movements mirrored, and this partnership is not just cooperation, but telepathy, a shared consciousness that allows them to act as one even when separated by distance. Latias, the female of the pair, is described as highly intelligent and capable of understanding human speech, and more than that, of sensing human emotions, reading the feelings of those nearby, and responding with empathy. This sensitivity makes Latias cautious, aware of danger before it manifests, able to protect itself and others by anticipating threats. Her ability to refract light, to become invisible, is often used not for deception, but for observation, a way of moving through the world without disturbing it. Latios, the male of the pair, shares these abilities, but his temperament is more protective, more willing to confront threats directly. The Pokédex describes Latios as fiercely loyal, willing to sacrifice itself to protect those it cares about, and this loyalty is not blind, but deliberate, a choice made with full awareness of the cost. The bond between Latias and Latios is one of the most touching in Pokémon mythology, a sibling relationship built on trust, mutual respect, and the knowledge that they are stronger together than apart. In Pokémon Heroes, the story of Latias and Latios centers on their role as guardians of Alto Mare, a city built on water, and their connection to the Soul Dew, an artifact that maintains the city's balance. The Soul Dew is not just a source of power, but a memory, a crystallized essence of a previous Latios who gave its life to protect the city. This detail suggests that the Eon Pokémon's connection to place is not just protective, but ancestral, that they carry the history of those who came before, that their guardianship is a legacy passed down through generations. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, Heatran, the Lavadome Pokémon, presents a mythology centered on extremes, survival in environments where most life cannot persist. Heatran's body is designed to withstand temperatures that would melt steel, its magma-proof shell allowing it to dwell within active volcanoes, submerged in molten rock. The Pokédex describes Heatran as tunneling through volcanic chambers, its movements causing shifts in magma flow, and this constant reshaping of the underground suggests that Heatran is not just a resident of these spaces, but a sculptor, an active participant in the geological processes that define volcanic regions. What makes Heatran unique among legendary Pokémon is its lack of a fixed gender. Heatran can be male or female, a rarity that suggests its species is not singular, that multiple Heatran exist, scattered across different volcanic sites. This multiplicity challenges the traditional understanding of legendary Pokémon as one-of-a-kind beings, introducing the possibility that some legends are not individuals, but populations, rare but not unique. Heatran's role in mythology is often described as a guardian of volcanic energy, ensuring that eruptions do not occur prematurely, that the pressure building beneath the surface is released gradually rather than catastrophically. This makes Heatran a stabilizer, a being whose presence prevents disaster, whose tunneling and movement act as a valve, allowing excess energy to disperse before it accumulates to dangerous levels. Cresselia, already discussed in relation to Darkrai, also carries a solo mythology, one that positions it as a wanderer, a Pokémon that drifts across regions, leaving lunar wings in its wake. These feathers, light as air, are said to glow faintly in the dark, and their presence is often interpreted as a blessing, a sign that restful sleep will follow. The people who find these feathers keep them close, placing them under pillows, in pockets, in lockets, believing that Cresselia's influence lingers within the plume, that its presence can be carried, that protection is portable. Cresselia's crescent-shaped wings, luminous and delicate, evoke the image of the moon itself, a celestial body that governs tides, rhythms, and the cycles of sleep. The mythology surrounding Cresselia often ties it to lunar phases, suggesting that its power waxes and wanes with the moon, that it is strongest under a full moon when light is abundant, and weakest during the new moon when darkness dominates. This connection to celestial cycles positions Cresselia as a being whose existence is not independent, but intertwined with forces larger than itself, a reminder that even legends are subject to the rhythms of the universe. Shaman, already mentioned briefly, also has a deeper mythology tied to migration, gratitude, and the concept of seasonal change. Shaman's land. Form is gentle, grounded, a small creature that blends into fields of flowers, almost indistinguishable from the environment it inhabits. But during specific seasons, when Gracidia flowers bloom, Shaman undergoes a transformation, its sky form emerging, allowing it to take flight and join the migration to flower paradise. This migration is not solitary. Shaman travel in groups, their numbers so vast that the sky darkens with their passage, and the sight of hundreds of shaman moving together is described as one of the most beautiful phenomena in the Pokémon world. The destination, Flower Paradise, is a hidden location that only shaman can find, a place where the air is pure, the flowers never wilt, and the land remains untouched by pollution or human interference. The mythology surrounding Flower Paradise suggests that it exists outside normal geography, accessible only through specific conditions, and that its location shifts, appearing in different places depending on the time of year, the weather, and the state of the environment. This transience makes Flower Paradise a place of longing, a destination that trainers dream of finding but rarely do, a reminder that some places are meant to be protected by their inaccessibility, that not everything should be reached. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at Phione and Manaphy, the Sea Drifter Pokémon, and the way their mythology centers on birth, belonging, and the ocean's vastness. Manaphy is described as the Prince of the Sea, a Pokémon born from a special egg that only appears in cold ocean currents, and once hatched, Manaphy begins a lifelong journey through the water, never staying in one place, always drifting toward the next current, the next horizon. What makes Manaphy unique is its ability to bond with any Pokémon or human it encounters, a process called Heart Swap, where Manaphy temporarily exchanges its perspective with another being, allowing both to see the world through each other's eyes. This ability is not invasive, but consensual, a gift that Manaphy offers to those it trusts, and the experience is said to be profound, a moment of total understanding, of seeing oneself from the outside and recognizing the shared humanity, the shared existence that connects all life. Phione, while related to Manaphy, does not share the same status. The Pokédex describes Phione as a lesser variant, a being that resembles Manaphy but lacks its full power, its full significance. This diminishment is not cruelty, but taxonomy, a recognition that similarity is not equivalence, that Phione exists in Manaphy's shadow, always close, always connected, but never quite the same. The relationship between Manaphy and Phione raises questions about lineage, about whether legendary Pokémon can reproduce, and if so, what that reproduction means. Phione's existence suggests that some legends can create others, that the divine is not always singular, that even beings of immense power can have offspring, descendants, legacies that extend beyond their own lives. As we drift toward the end of this journey, the cumulative weight of these myths, these stories, these quiet details, begins to form a larger pattern, a recognition that legendary Pokémon are not separate from the world, but woven into it, that their power is not dominance, but participation, that their significance lies not in what they control, but in what they reflect. Every legendary Pokémon, from Mewtwo's isolation to Manaphy's wandering, carries a piece of the larger narrative, a fragment of the question that the Pokémon world constantly asks. What does it mean to exist alongside others, to hold power without abusing it, to be remembered without demanding recognition? The myths surrounding these beings are not static. They shift with each retelling, each encounter, each generation of trainers who walk the routes, enter the caves, and stand before the legendaries with a mixture of awe and understanding. The stories persist because they matter, because they offer something beyond entertainment, beyond challenge, beyond the mechanics of catching and battling. They offer meaning, a sense that the world is larger than any individual, that forces exist beyond human comprehension, and that those forces, while distant, are not indifferent. Arceus, the original one, watches from a place beyond reach, not as a ruler, but as a presence, or a reminder that creation is ongoing, that the universe does not end, only continues, shaped by the actions of those who inhabit it. The plates that Arceus carries, each representing a different type, suggest that divinity is not singular, but multifaceted, that the source of all things contains all possibilities, all contradictions, all truths. The Pokémon world, for all its whimsy, for all its charm, for all its lightheartedness, carries a depth that reveals itself slowly through the accumulation of these stories, these myths, these quiet moments where a legendary Pokémon appears not to fight, not to challenge, but simply to be seen, to remind the trainer, the player, the person on the other side of the screen, that wonder still exists, that mystery persists, that the universe holds secrets that may never be fully understood, and that this lack of understanding is not a failure, but an invitation. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the swords of justice, Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion, and the way their mythology centers on protection, justice, and the defense of those who cannot defend themselves. These three Pokémon emerged during a time of great conflict, a war between humans that devastated the forests and mountains where wild Pokémon lived. The legends describe them not as warriors seeking glory, but as defenders acting out of necessity, stepping forward when no other force could halt the destruction. Cobalion, the Iron Will Pokémon, is described as the leader of the trio, a being whose body is composed of steel so refined that it can deflect any attack. The Pokédex states that Cobalion's heart is as hard as its armor, not in cruelty, but in resolve, an unshakable commitment to justice that allows no compromise, no hesitation. Cobalion's horns, sharp and symmetrical, are not weapons of aggression, but tools of precision, used to cut through obstacles, to clear paths, to create openings where none existed. The mythology surrounding Cobalion often emphasizes discipline, the understanding that strength without control leads to chaos, that power must be tempered by purpose. Cobalion's training of Keldeo reflects this philosophy, a process that is not gentle, but rigorous, demanding, designed to forge resilience through challenge. The lessons Cobalion teaches are not about winning, but about enduring, about standing firm even when victory seems impossible. Terrakion, the cavern Pokémon, embodies raw physical might, a being whose strength is so overwhelming that it can shatter castle walls with a single charge. The Pokédex describes Terrakion as protecting Pokémon whose homes were destroyed by human expansion, offering refuge in caves and caverns, spaces carved by its own power. This role as provider, as shelter, positions Terrakion not just as a warrior, but as a caretaker, a being whose strength is used to create safety rather than dominate. Terrakion's hooves, capable of crushing boulders, are described as instruments of both destruction and construction, used to tunnel through rock, to create new passages, to reshape the landscape in ways that benefit those who seek refuge. This duality, the capacity to tear down and build up, reflects the complexity of Terrakion's nature, a force that understands that sometimes protection requires demolition, that old structures must fall before new ones can rise. Virizion, the grassland Pokémon, moves with a grace that belies its combat prowess, its body light and agile, capable of evading attacks through speed and precision. The Pokédex describes Virizion as the swiftest of the trio, a being that strikes like a whirlwind, its blade-like horns slicing through enemies before they can react. But Virizion's speed is not just offensive, it's protective, allowing it to reach endangered Pokémon before harm arrives, to intercept threats, to position itself between danger and those who cannot escape. The mythology surrounding Virizion often ties it to the forests, to the green spaces where life flourishes, and its presence is said to encourage growth, to stimulate vegetation, to restore vitality to lands that have been drained. This connection between Virizion and nature positions it as a healer, a being whose influence extends beyond combat, whose existence nurtures the world even in stillness. The bond between Cobalion, Terrakion, and Virizion is not hierarchy, but partnership, three approaches to justice that complement one another, three perspectives that together form a complete response to injustice. They do not command one another, they collaborate, each recognizing the value of the other's strengths, each willing to step back when another's approach is better suited to the situation. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the forces of nature, Tornadus, Thundurus, and Landorus, present a mythology centered on weather, agriculture, and the delicate balance between destruction and fertility. Tornadus, the cyclone Pokémon, is described as a being of pure wind, a creature without physical legs, its lower body composed of swirling air. The storms it generates are not random, but patterns, atmospheric movements that follow ancient rhythms, and the Pokédex warns that Tornadus's presence can flatten entire forests, uproot trees, and scatter debris across vast distances. Thundurus, the Bolt Strike Pokémon, mirrors Tornadus in form, its body also composed of elemental energy rather than solid matter. The lightning it generates is said to ignite fires, to strike with precision, to target the tallest structures, the highest peaks, and this selectivity suggests that Thundurus is not mindless, but aware, choosing where to direct its power. The mythology surrounding Thundurus often describes it as competitive, constantly seeking to outdo Tornadus, to prove that lightning is more powerful than wind. This rivalry between Tornadus and Thundurus is central to their legend, a conflict that has persisted for centuries, shaping the weather patterns of the Unova region. When both appear simultaneously, the skies darken, the clouds churn, and storms of unprecedented intensity sweep across the land. The people of Unova learned long ago to recognize the signs of their approach, to seek shelter, to secure their homes, to wait out the fury until the two forces exhaust themselves and retreat. Landorus, the abundance Pokémon, serves as the mediator, the force that restores balance after Tornadus and Thundurus have clashed. Where the other two destroy, Landorus rebuilds, its presence enriching the soil, stimulating growth, ensuring that the devastation left by wind and lightning becomes the foundation for new life. The Pokédex describes Landorus as revered by farmers who see it as a deity of harvest, a being whose arrival signals abundance, whose influence turns barren fields into fertile plains. Landorus's two forms, Incarnate and Therian, reflect different aspects of its role. The incarnate form, humanoid and composed of clouds, represents Landorus as a conscious mediator, a being that chooses when and how to intervene. The Therian form, quadrupedal and beast-like, represents Landorus as a force of nature, a primal energy that acts without thought, driven by instinct rather than decision. The transformation between forms suggests that Landorus contains both consciousness and instinct, both reason and impulse, and that its effectiveness comes from the ability to shift between these states as needed. The introduction of Enamorus in Pokémon Legends. Arceus expands the forces of nature into a quartet, adding a fourth perspective centered on love, attraction, and the bonds that connect beings. Enamorus, the love-hate Pokémon, is described as volatile, its emotions shifting rapidly between affection and fury, and this instability makes it one of the most unpredictable legendaries. The Pokédex states that Enamorus blesses those it deems worthy with love, but curses those it rejects with jealousy, and this binary judgment suggests that Enamorus operates on a moral framework that is deeply personal, highly subjective. Enamorus's incarnate form resembles a serpent wrapped in clouds, its body graceful and flowing, while its Therian form takes the shape of a massive tortoise, grounded and immovable. This shift from fluidity to solidity mirrors the transition from passion to commitment, from the initial spark of attraction to the enduring foundation of lasting bonds. The mythology surrounding Enamorus often emphasizes that love is not static, that it requires both movement and stability, both expression and restraint. The relationship between the four forces of nature is not fully explored in the games, but the implication is clear. They represent different aspects of the natural world, different forces that shape the environment, and together they form a system that maintains balance through conflict, through cooperation, through the constant push and pull of opposing energies. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the guardian deities of Alola, already mentioned briefly, but whose individual myths deserve deeper exploration. Tapu Koko's role as the guardian of Melemele Island is not passive observation, but active engagement, a deity that tests the strength of trainers, challenging them to prove their worth. The Pokédex describes Tapu Koko as fickle, appearing when it chooses, vanishing just as quickly, and this unpredictability makes encounters with it feel earned rather than guaranteed. Tapu Koko's ability to generate electricity is tied to its shell, which acts as a capacitor, storing energy over time and releasing it in bursts. The shell's design, resembling a stylized bird, is not decorative but functional, a structure that channels lightning in specific patterns, allowing Tapu Koko to control not just the intensity of its attacks, but their shape, their trajectory, their impact. This precision positions Tapu Koko as a being of strategy, a deity that does not rely on overwhelming force, but on calculated strikes. Tapu Lele's scales, which shimmer with psychic energy, are described as both medicine and poison, capable of healing wounds or inducing hallucinations, depending on dosage. The mythology surrounding Tapu Lele often frames it as a deity of transformation, a being that changes those who encounter it, whether through physical healing, mental expansion, or the dissolution of boundaries between self and other. The glowing scales it scatters across Akala Island are said to accumulate in certain areas, creating zones where reality feels thin, where the line between waking and dreaming becomes blurred. Tapu Bulu's connection to the land is more than symbolic. The Pokédex states that it can control vegetation, causing plants to grow or wither with a thought. This power is not wielded carelessly. Tapu Bulu uses it to maintain the balance of Ula Ula Island, ensuring that no single species dominates, that ecosystems remain diverse, that growth and decay occur in rhythm. The sound of its bell-like horns is said to resonate with the frequency of plant cells, stimulating growth on a molecular level, a detail that blends mythology with biology in ways unique to Pokemon's world-building. Tapu Fini's mist, already described as purifying, also serves as a test, a trial that forces those who enter to confront their deepest fears, their buried regrets, their unresolved grief. The Pokédex warns that not everyone who enters the mist returns unchanged, that some lose themselves entirely, their sense of self eroded by the visions Tapu Fini conjures. This makes Tapu Fini the most dangerous of the guardian deities, not because it seeks to harm, but because its form of protection requires sacrifice, the willingness to face what has been hidden, to acknowledge what has been denied. The relationship between the four, Tapu, and the people of Alola is reciprocal. The deities protect the islands, and the people honor the deities through ritual, through respect, through the understanding that their presence is a gift, not a guarantee. This mutual acknowledgement positions the Tapu as integrated into the culture of Alola, not as distant gods, but as active participants in the community's ongoing story. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the concept of Ultra Beasts, already introduced, deserves further exploration, particularly the way they challenge the player's understanding of what a Pokemon is. Poipole and Naganadel, for example, blur the line between Ultra Beast and traditional Pokemon, as Poipole is depicted as friendly, curious, even playful, traits that contrast sharply with the alienation most Ultra Beasts exhibit. The Pokédex describes Poipole as a beloved companion in its home dimension, a creature that bonds easily with trainers, and this familiarity suggests that Ultra Beasts are not inherently hostile, only incompatible. Naganadel, Poipole's evolution, retains this friendly nature, but gains a more aggressive edge, its stinger capable of injecting powerful venom, its wings generating speeds that rival jet aircraft. The transformation from Poipole to Naganadel mirrors the transition from innocence to experience, from curiosity to capability, and the fact that this evolution occurs through friendship rather than combat emphasizes that growth is not always adversarial, that strength can emerge from connection rather than conflict. Stakataka, the Rampart Pokemon, is described not as a single entity, but as a colony, hundreds of smaller organisms stacking together to form a fortress-like structure. This collective consciousness challenges the traditional understanding of individuality, as each component of Stakataka is alive, aware, but also part of a larger whole. The Pokédex states that Stakataka can rearrange its structure, shifting walls to adapt to threats, and this adaptability suggests that the collective intelligence is more flexible than any single mind could be. Blacephalon, the fireworks Pokemon, performs a macabre display, detaching its own head and detonating it in bursts of colorful fire. The Pokédex describes this as a distraction tactic, a way to confuse opponents while Blacephalon escapes, but the imagery is unsettling, a being that uses self-destruction as strategy. The fact that Blacephalon can regenerate its head after detonation suggests that its relationship with its own body is fundamentally different from other Pokémon, that it views itself not as a singular organism, but as a process, a cycle of explosion and reformation. The Ultra Beasts, taken together, represent the vastness of the Pokémon multiverse, the recognition that the world players inhabit is one of countless dimensions, each with its own ecosystems, its own rules, its own forms of life. The ultra wormholes that connect these dimensions are not invasions, but collisions, moments when boundaries dissolve, when the familiar encounters the alien, and both are changed by the meeting. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the relationship between legendary Pokémon and the passage of time, particularly how myths evolve, how stories shift, how the original meaning of a legend can be lost even as the legend itself persists. The tale of the original dragon in Unova, the being that split into Reshiram, Zekrom, and Kyurem, has been passed down for generations, but the details vary depending on who tells it. Some versions claim the split was violent, a battle that tore the dragon apart. Others suggest it was peaceful, a mutual decision to separate, to explore different paths. This ambiguity is not a flaw in the mythology, but a feature, a recognition that truth is not singular, that history is shaped by perspective, that the same event can be interpreted in multiple ways depending on who survived to tell the story. The fact that no definitive account exists suggests that the original dragon's fate is unknowable, that the past is not a fixed point, but a collection of possibilities, and that every retelling adds another layer, another interpretation, another version of what might have been. The concept of legendary Pokémon as symbols, rather than literal beings, is explored through the way different cultures interpret the same Pokémon. Lugia, for example, is called the Guardian of the Seas in some regions, but in others, it's known as the Beast of the Storm, a creature to be feared rather than revered. This variation in interpretation suggests that legendary Pokémon are not defined by their own nature, but by how they are perceived, by the stories that surround them, by the cultural context in which they exist. The same pattern appears with Rayquaza, described in some myths as a protector, in others as a destroyer, and in still others as an indifferent force, a being that intervenes only when the balance of the world is threatened, not out of care for humanity, but out of self-interest, a desire to maintain the stability of the ecosystem it inhabits. This multiplicity of interpretations positions Rayquaza not as a hero or a villain, but as a natural force, something that acts according to its own logic, its own needs, its own understanding of what the world requires. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the role of legendary Pokémon in shaping the geography of regions becomes more apparent. Mount Coronet in Sinnoh, for example, is not just a mountain, but a sacred site, the place where Arceus is said to have stood when it created Dialga and Palkia. The caves that run through Mount Coronet are described as veins, channels through which energy flows, connecting the peak to the lakes where Uxie, Mesprit, and Azelf reside. This network suggests that the region itself is alive, that the land is not passive, but responsive, shaped by the presence of the legendaries that inhabit it. The Spear Pillar, located at the summit of Mount Coronet, is a ruin now, but the architecture suggests it was once a place of worship, a site where ancient people gathered to honor the creation trio. The pillars that remain, weathered and cracked, are arranged in patterns that align with celestial events, suggesting that the builders understood astronomy, that they recognized the connection between the movements of stars and the movements of Dialga and Palkia, that they saw the universe not as separate realms, but as a unified system. The distortion world, Giratina's domain, exists as a counterpoint to the physical world, a place where gravity operates in reverse, where time flows backward, where the architecture defies logic. The platforms that float in the distortion world are not held up by anything. They simply exist, suspended in space, and walking across them requires adjusting to a physics that contradicts everything learned in the ordinary world. This inversion is not random. It's a reflection of Giratina's nature, a being that embodies antimatter, that exists in opposition to everything Dialga and Palkia create. The Torn World, as it's sometimes called, is described as a mirror, a place that reflects the state of the physical world, and when the physical world is in chaos, the distortion world becomes more unstable, more fragmented. This connection suggests that Giratina is not separate from the world, but bound to it, that its exile is not distance, but proximity, a constant presence on the other side of reality, watching, waiting, maintaining the balance by embodying the opposite of order. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the role of music in legendary Pokémon mythology, particularly how sound is used to communicate, to heal, to summon. Meloetta's song, already mentioned, is said to resonate at frequencies that affect emotion directly, bypassing conscious thought and reaching the subconscious mind. The melody it produces is not random, but structured, composed of intervals and harmonies that correspond to specific emotional states, and those who hear it describe feeling as though the song is reaching into them, unlocking feelings they didn't know they carried. The Relic song, Meloetta's signature move, is not just a battle technique, but a historical artifact, a melody that dates back thousands of years, passed down through generations, preserved in ancient texts, in oral traditions, in the memories of Pokémon who witnessed its first performance. The song's power to change Meloetta's form suggests that music is not just expression, but transformation, that sound can alter reality, that the right melody played in the right way can reshape the world. Lugia's song, the Parish Song in some interpretations, carries a different weight, a melody that signals endings, that marks the conclusion of cycles. The Pokédex describes Lugia's song as capable of calming storms, but the process is not gentle, it's absolute, a sound that erases atmospheric energy, that drains the violence from the air and leaves only stillness. This power, to end something completely, to bring chaos to a halt, positions Lugia's song as both blessing and warning, a reminder that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the end of it, and that endings, while necessary, are not always welcomed. The flutes used to summon the legendary titans in Hoenn, the red and blue orbs that resonate with Groudon and Kyogre, the azure flute said to call Arceus. All these instruments suggest that sound is a universal language, a means of communication that transcends species, that reaches across dimensions, that connects the mundane to the divine. The fact that these instruments are often lost, hidden, or sealed suggests that the power of sound is recognized as dangerous, that the ability to summon legends is not a gift to be shared lightly, but a responsibility that requires caution, respect, and the understanding that some forces, once called, cannot be easily dismissed. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the concept of sealed legendaries, beings that are not free, but contained, introduces a mythology centered on restraint, on the recognition that some powers are too great to be left unchecked. Regigigas, bound by ancient seals that slow its movements, is one of the clearest examples, a titan whose strength is so immense that it must be handicapped, restricted, forced to operate at a fraction of its potential. The slow start ability it possesses in battle is not a weakness, but a safeguard, a limitation imposed by those who understood that Regigigas's full power could reshape continents, that its awakening without constraint would destabilize the world. The sealed chamber, where the Regi trio is hidden, requires specific knowledge to access, braille inscriptions that must be read, patterns that must be recognized, actions that must be performed in sequence. This layered security suggests that the ancients who sealed the Regis did not want them to remain hidden forever, only until someone with the wisdom to read the clues, the patience to solve the puzzles, and the humility to respect the gravity of what they were unsealing came along. Giratina's exile to the distortion world is another form of sealing, a containment that is not physical but dimensional, a separation that keeps Giratina's antimatter nature from destabilizing the physical world. The Griseous Orb, which allows Giratina to maintain its origin form outside the distortion world, is not a key to freedom, but a tether, a link that allows Giratina to exist in the physical world without unraveling it, a compromise between exile and integration. The prison bottle that contains Hoopa's unbound form is perhaps the most explicit example of sealing as protection, a vessel designed not to punish, but to prevent, to ensure that Hoopa's power does not spiral out of control. The bottle's design, ornate and ancient, suggests that it was crafted with care, that the sealing was not hasty, but deliberate, that those who bound Hoopa understood the difference between imprisonment and safeguarding. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the concept of legendary Pokémon as teachers, beings whose encounters impart lessons, whose presence challenges trainers to grow. Keldeo's training under the Swords of Justice is the most explicit example, a process that transforms a young Pokémon into a warrior. But the lesson is not just about combat, it's about integrity, about standing for justice even when the cost is high, about an understanding that strength without purpose is meaningless. The trial system in Alola, overseen by the trial captains and culminating in battles against the Tapu, is another form of education, a structured journey that tests not just battle skill, but character, resilience, adaptability. Each trial is designed to challenge a different aspect of the trainer's abilities, and the Tapu's role at the end of this process is not to reward success, but to validate growth, to acknowledge that the trainer has learned, has changed, has earned the right to move forward. The relationship between legendary Pokémon and the trainers who encounter them is rarely one of equals. The legendary holds power, knowledge, experience that the trainer lacks, and the encounter becomes an opportunity for the trainer to learn through observation, through challenge, through the humility of recognizing that there are forces in the world greater than oneself. This dynamic positions legendary Pokémon not as obstacles to be overcome, but as mentors, guides, beings whose presence elevates those who engage with them. As we drift a little deeper into this topic, the role of legendary Pokémon in prophecy, in the foretelling of future events, introduces a mythology centered on destiny, fate, and the question of whether the future is fixed or mutable. The prophecies surrounding the original dragon's return in Unova, the predictions that Dialga and Palkia will awaken when the world is threatened, the visions that suggest Necrozma's light will be restored, all these foretell futures that may or may not occur, possibilities rather than certainties. The fact that prophecies in the Pokémon world are often vague, open to interpretation, suggests that they are not commands, but warnings, not destinies carved in stone, but paths that might be walked if certain conditions are met. This ambiguity positions the future as something that can be influenced, that responds to action, that is shaped by choices made in the present, rather than dictated by forces beyond control. The appearance of legendary Pokémon is often interpreted as a sign, a signal that something significant is about to occur, and this association between legendaries and pivotal moments reinforces the idea that their existence is not random, but purposeful, that they appear when the world reaches a crossroads, when decisions must be made, when the future hangs in balance. Another quiet detail appears when we look closer at the concept of hidden legendaries, beings whose existence is known, but whose location is secret, whose encounters are rare, whose myths are whispered rather than proclaimed. Celebi, appearing only in specific groves at specific times, is one such being, a Pokémon whose rarity is not scarcity but selectivity, a choice to reveal itself only when the conditions are right, when the person seeking it is ready, when the world needs its intervention. Shaman's Flower Paradise, accessible only during certain seasons, operates on a similar principle, a place that exists but cannot be found through maps or directions, only through intuition, through connection to nature, through the understanding that some destinations require more than determination. They require harmony, alignment, a resonance between seeker and sought. The hidden grottos, secret chambers, and unmarked locations where legendary Pokémon reside suggest that the world is layered, that not everything is visible on the surface, that exploration is not just about covering distance, but about discovering depth, about finding the places that exist between the known and the unknown, the spaces where mystery still breathes. As we drift toward the conclusion of this journey, the cumulative weight of these myths, these stories, these quiet truths, forms a tapestry that reveals the Pokémon world not as a place of simple adventure, but as a realm of profound complexity, where every legendary Pokémon carries not just power, but meaning, where every encounter is not just a challenge, but an opportunity to understand something deeper about the nature of existence, about the forces that shape reality, about the delicate balance between order and chaos, creation and destruction, connection and solitude. The legendary Pokémon are not gods in the traditional sense. They are reflections, mirrors that show humanity its own potential, its own fears, its own hopes. They are the embodiment of questions that have no easy answers, forces that cannot be controlled, only respected, beings whose presence reminds us that the universe is vast, that mystery persists, that wonder is not a luxury, but a necessity, a fundamental aspect of what it means to be alive, to be curious, to be willing to look beyond the familiar and ask, what else is out there, waiting, watching, drifting through the spaces between stars, between moments, between heartbeats? The patterns that emerge from studying these beings reveal a philosophy woven deeply into the fabric of the Pokémon world, that power is not inherently good or evil, but neutral, defined by how it's used, by the intentions behind it, by the choices made in moments when strength could either protect or destroy. Every legendary Pokémon, from the smallest mythical to the most cosmic deity, carries this principle that existence is not about domination, but participation, not about control, but coexistence. The trainers who encounter these beings walk away changed, not because they captured something powerful, but because they witnessed something greater than themselves, something that reminded them that the world extends far beyond their understanding, that the universe holds secrets they will never fully grasp, and that this unknowing is not failure, but invitation. The legendary Pokémon stand as guardians, not just of regions, but of wonder itself, of the capacity to be amazed, to be humbled, to stand before something magnificent and feel small in the best possible way. They exist at the edges of understanding, in the liminal spaces where knowledge gives way to awe, where certainty dissolves into curiosity, and where the act of witnessing becomes more important than the act of capturing, where presence matters more than possession. In the quiet moments between battles, between journeys, between the noise of daily life, the legends persist. They hum beneath the world like a constant frequency, a reminder that the sacred has not left, has not faded, has only changed form, adapted to new eras, new challenges, new understandings. The myths continue to evolve, to shift, to incorporate new truths while preserving old wisdom, and this fluidity is their strength, their ability to remain relevant across generations, to speak to each new group of trainers in ways that resonate with their specific time, their specific struggles, their specific hopes, their specific dreams of what the world could become if only we listened carefully enough to the stories it tells. The legendary Pokémon are not finished. Their stories continue, written by every player who encounters them, by every decision made in their presence, by every moment of connection between human and Pokémon that acknowledges something deeper than mechanics, something more profound than type advantages and battle strategies. They are living myths, beings that grow with the world they inhabit, and as long as people look up at the night sky and wonder what lies beyond, as long as forests hold secrets, as long as oceans remain unexplored, the legends will endure, patient, eternal, waiting for the next person to remember that magic is real, that mystery is possible, that the universe still holds places where wonder breathes, where silence speaks louder than noise. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed drifting through these quiet moments, there's another video waiting on the left of your screen. Let it play while you rest. You might discover something gentle before sleep takes you again.